Thanks so much, Glenn. Mild alcoholic. I don't know if anyone will give me like a few minutes out. Um, Thanks so much. And welcome to Amy and Shane. Um, thank you all for being here. Um, it's amazing how just getting on a meeting, we really don't know. We're getting on a meeting thinking about, oh, I've got to get to a meeting or I'm going to get to a meeting on my days like this. But we don't lots of times think about how we're helping somebody else. Just not a lot of effort, but just showing up is something that actually could save somebody's life. Being able to say something, um, and it's a beautiful thing when we're able to be here for someone and we're not even realizing how powerful just showing up can be. Um, I My sobriety date is February 25th, 1994, and I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. And it's kind of fun because one of the things that drew me to this guy is he started sharing his lineage and his grand sponsor's great grand sponsor was Bill W. And so I thought, oh, well, that's cool. Whatever it takes, right, to come up to someone and say, hey, I want what you have. Um, I had a sponsor. I was about 15 years sober, and my sponsor took me through the steps. I remember when I was, I had this journey, which I'll tell you about. But I went up to my sponsor at this point in my recovery, and I was desperate. And he asked me if I was an alcoholic, and I said, I don't know. And he said, well, if you think that if you have a question about it, there's a liquor store down the street. He says, I suggest that you go down and try some controlled drinking. And I thought that was like the most uncompassionate, unloving thing anybody could say to this guy that's like, can you help me? And he said, no, 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 go down there and check it out. He says, um, because the truth will set you free. And I didn't understand what he meant at that point, because he said, look, I don't know what you are. I don't know if you're an addict. I don't know if you're an alcoholic. I don't know what you are, but we're going to find out if you want to go through this work. This is a journey for your truth. And I didn't go down to the liquor store. I hung out with this guy, and he took me through this process that changed my life. A very deep experience. And I'm gonna read this thing on page 25. Basically, it describes my situation, um, and um, and what I experienced today. And I'm going to put this in the first person. Of course, we say we in the book, but the great fact is just this and nothing less, that I have had a deep and effective spiritual experience, which has revolutionized my whole attitude towards life, towards my fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact in my life today is the absolute certainty that my Creator has entered into my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for me, which I could never do by myself. If you are seriously alcoholic as I was, I believe there's no middle of the road solution. I was in a position where life was becoming impossible, and I had passed into a region from which there was no return through human aid. I had but two alternatives. One was to go into the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of my intolerable situation as best I could. And the other was to accept spiritual help. So in this I did because I honestly wanted to, and I was willing to make the effort. And, I read that because that was my experience. And, I'm this kid from up in Sacramento, California, in this place, kind of housing project called CB Circle. And the folks that wrote this, or the guy that wrote this, was Bill W., who was up in Vermont, and he was a stockbroker, completely different life than me. But I had the same experience, Also, in page 44, they write, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live life on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. And so they're talking about the solution is the spiritual solution, but they also say that, trying to decide between an alcoholic death which is, dying in your own vomit and urine, or living this happy, joyous, and free life. And for some reason, my mind, has to ponder and figure out, which way should I go here? What should I do? And so there's something wrong with my mind. And it's this thing called alcoholism. And I did not understand what that was. I did not know what alcoholism was, even though I was raised by two parents that died of this disease. My mom, if you looked at her death certificate, it wouldn't say alcoholism, it said renal failure. And my dad was killed while he was strangling a woman because she wouldn't give him the money to go out and get what he wanted, his drugs and alcohol. And she called me a few days later. She was crying. And she said, I felt my life leaving me as your dad was strangling me, and I had to do something. So she reached into a nightstand that was on the bed by her. She found this letter opener, and she came up and got him right in the heart as he was, insane, strangling her because she wouldn't give him whatever it was, $20 or $40 or something. So, I'm thinking, understanding a little bit about that might veer me or steer me in a direction that would be away from a lifestyle like that, or addiction or alcoholism, even though I didn't know what that was. But my solution was, I just won't do heroin. That's my solution. It's not a spiritual solution. And 30 years later, I have to believe that this whole program is a spiritual solution. It's a spiritual path that we're on that not only will relieve me of my difficulties, which are when I walk into these rooms drinking or using, but it will take my life and I'll experience things beyond my wildest dreams, things I couldn't even dream of. I believe that the information that is in the first 164 pages and the information that came from Bob and Bill in the first 100 did not necessarily come from Bob and Bill in the first 100. It actually came through Bob and Bill in the first 100. The information I believe in this book is divine information. And I believe that this meeting right now is divine. I think we're having a divine experience in this moment, right this second. I'm here having a divine experience. And they talk about, don't leave before the miracle. The miracle's happening this second, And if I'm here and experiencing even this attempt and having a desire to stop drinking, that's a miracle. If you're this alcoholic and addict like me, I didn't understand what that was. And I'll keep saying that, because I didn't understand alcoholism when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought you guys were going to, help me manage my drinking. I'd be able to drink and not, wreck a car or lose a job, or, I'd be able to keep the stuff that I had and get the things that I wanted. And I thought that that's what this was about. I didn't really, the big book and, a sponsor, phenomenon of craving, mental obsession, psychic change, none of that stuff was. I thought I was just supposed to come to meetings and don't drink or use no matter what. That was what they told me. That's what I heard when I came in. Just come to the meeting and then don't drink in between meetings and then come to another meeting. And that's what I heard. And I thought that was a program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did not understand that I had no power to not drink or use. I could drink or use no matter what, but I could not drink or use no matter what. And so I didn't understand any of that. I'm this little kid who's coming from, this family that, you know, they used to make a joke about when I was a little kid, they were having a party and I snuck some drinks off the table or something, and I'm about 4 years old, falling in the front yard, me and another friend of mine. And it was like a fun thing, drinking and being able to party, and the the sound of a gay party or whatever they say in the books. It's like we're having this great time. And so that really something was just a part of life, and it was a part of life in my existence. I'd wake up in the morning and my mom would go to the cupboard and she'd pull out this bottle of Old Taylor and she'd drink it. And it was 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm getting ready to go to school and she's already, had a couple drinks. And so that's a way of life. That's a normal thing that's going on in my world. And she said that was her eye opener. That's how she got her day started. And so when I think about it, and I'm this little kid that has these dreams, and when you're in school, the people say, the teacher asks, Sally, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be the president of the United States. Awesome, Sally. Awesome. Johnny, what do you want to be? I want to be an astronaut. Johnny, absolutely. You can be whatever you want to be. Miles, what do you want to be? Well, I want to be able to drink my friends under the table and smoke crack like a gentleman. And I didn't say that, but how did I get there? How did I get to that place in that dark room with the windows drawn? And we had phone machines back in the day where you could actually hear people call you and talk to you and say, hey, we love you, Miles, we're in town, and you're just looking at the phone and you're not picking that up. And, I read something that that resonates with me, and it said, in my darkest time, it wasn't as much as it was the presence of the problem as it was the absence of the solution. And so the absence of the solution is my situation when I come to AA, and I don't really know exactly why I'm here, except you guys are going to help me manage my drinking. I don't know about the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know about the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know about the 12 spiritual concepts of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 36 spiritual principles that are going to change my life, like I said, beyond my wildest dreams. I don't know anything about that. I just think, I'm walking to this place where people know my name. It's like I'm in Cheers, or something where everyone knows your name. And that's part of what's bringing me back to AA. Some of the girls and the people, know who you are. So you're cool. And I'll just keep coming back and not understanding how devastating this disease is. I copied a couple words. I don't know if I have them here in the dictionary. And I don't know if I have them, but one of the words was violence. And because violence, the use of physical force so as to injure, abuse, damage, or destroy. That's this disease. This disease is trying to destroy me, damage. And, even in our minds, when we go for that drink, it's like, we're going to get effed up. We're going to get stoned. We're going to get wasted. I mean, the mind is, I'm setting out for this thing to abuse myself and take myself out. And, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to cause this harm, this, be in this place of violence? And I don't understand that. Well, I looked up the word alcoholism. It says a chronic, a progressive, potentially fatal disorder marked by excessive and unusually compulsive drinking of alcohol, leading to psychological and physical dependence on addiction, continued and excessive or compulsive use. So that disease is going to kill me. And so again, what's the solution? If I all of a sudden find myself, like I said, this kid that has these dreams, and the next thing I know, I'm in this dark room, not really, isolating myself and completely, going through all of the physical damage and creating this violence, upon myself. Um, well, I know that the solution, like we started talking about, is the spiritual path, the spiritual work. Because Dr. Silkworth talks about in the doctor's opinion, it says that, that we like the effects produced by alcohol. So that's part of why I crossed that imaginary line. And all of a sudden, I'm an alcoholic, and I don't know that. But, the whole process of like, as soon as I take this drink, I have this physical thing that happens. They call it the phenomenon of craving. And all of a sudden, I can't stop. I'm drink after drink after drink. And this happens, I'm on this spree, emerging remorseful, saying that I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to do it different or whatever. But then because of this obsession of the mind, I can't remember how bad it was and how many times I said I wasn't going to do it again. So I do it again. I take that drink again. And the guy like in the book pounding his, fist on the bar, how did I get here again? And because of this obsession of the mind, I can't remember even a week or a month ago. And this phenomenon of craving that happens, I'm hopeless. There's really, if I can't remember not to drink, but when I drink, I can't stop, and I end up in this place of really wanting to possibly end my life because I'm in that cycle. Well, Dr. Silkworth says that, this goes on and on and on unless I can have some type of psychic change or some type of spiritual awakening, there's very little hope. So Bill Wilson had a psychic change when Ebby Thatcher came in, and took him through the 6 steps from the Oxford group. And he had this experience that supposedly he never drank again. And he had this passion to share how he did this. So he pinned the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And supposedly he wrote this in like less than 45 minutes, the 12 steps. That is divine. I mean, for this thing to come through this man, and he has eventually, as of today, millions of us have recovered because of this process. And if we make this a way of life, we can stay abstinent from alcohol. If that's not a miracle, that is a miracle. So it's just, that's the solution. So now how do I do this? Because, I can tell you as this kid, I did have these dreams. It wasn't really to drink my friends under the table or smoke crack like a gentleman, but it was to play drums. And my mom used to play these records, and I would listen to the record and I'd imagine myself on the record, playing the drums. And I'd even call my friends up and I'd put the record on and I'd say, you want to hear me play drums? And then I'd put the phone up to the record player and there'd be this like, I don't know, Buddy Rich or whoever these great drummers were back then. And then I'd put the phone back up to my ear and they go, wow, you're great. And I'd go, yeah. And this was my imaginary mind, my imaginary dream that my grandfather ended up giving me this drum. And I went into, it was old beat up marching drum. And I went into the garage and this thing turned into a whole drum set. And it had the cymbals and it had the bass drum and it had the tom-toms and it was a whole drum set. It was really this little drum. And I sat in there, I don't know, for months, whatever it was with this drum. And one day I was walking down the street and I heard some music come out of the house. And I went around the back where I heard the music and there was a guitar player and there was a bass player back there. And they were sitting in there and there was a drum set, but no one was on the drums. So they kind of waved me in. And I went in and they said they were looking for a drummer. And I'd never played the drums before. But what I did is I sat down at the drums and I played the drums and I got the gig. And this was the beginning of this journey that was a part of this dream that was like dream and aspiration way up here, that I wanted to be that guy that played and toured in a band and was on the record. And and so that was the beginning of this journey, this dream that I had. And so, as I'm going through this process, I don't understand that a little puff of something here, a drink there, that this other thing is happening, this thing called alcoholism. And I moved down to the Bay Area from Sacramento, where I was born, up there, and in the San Francisco area, and I started playing in these different bands. And someone was in the audience and said, "Hey, we want you to come down to LA because we might want to sign you up." And so ended up coming down to Los Angeles. And at one point, I get a phone call, and these guys call and they say, "We want you to play on this record." And I'm thinking, wow, you know what? This dream of mine is coming true. And so I put it in my calendar, maybe it's a few weeks away. And then the night before this recording session, that was my dream, the dream from this little kid that was in that garage with the drum, is happening the next day. But I'm at this party and I'm partying down like it's 1999 or whatever the song is. And what happens is I get home and the birds are tweeting in the morning and I've been up all night, and I realize that this is the morning of that session. So somehow this disease of alcoholism has, overshadowed these goals and aspirations that I had to be this guy, this drummer that would, do these great things. And I throw I'm freaking out. I throw my drums in the car. I'm driving across town. I get to the session, and it's like a clown show. The cymbals are falling out of the car. I'm trying to drag my drums in and set up, and the producers are looking at their watch because I'm running late. And I finally get my stuff set up, and I'm sitting there holding my sticks, and I'm sweating profusely. And my thought is not, wow, this is my dream. It's finally happening. My thought was, how do I get the F out of here? And that's this disease of alcoholism. That's this disease of alcoholism that is a subtle soul that is coming, and we don't even know. It's like, how did I get here? And I can tell you, when these guys said, let's start recording, I made it through the session, but they never called me back for another record date. And as I was driving down the street, I thought to myself, my thought was, if I would have just driven down J Street instead of K Street, everything would have been fantastic. It would have been great. And that's the disease of alcoholism. My mind is telling me that it's something out there. I never thought that it was because I was up at this party all night. That's the last thing that I would think of. But that's how this disease has worked and has started working in my mind. And I don't, when you move on to the next thing, the disease will also, like I said, the obsession of mind is going to allow me to forget that circumstance happened. So, I get another job here. I get another job there. And finally, I get a job with this group that has some notoriety. And I get a call from the management company, and they say, we want you to, the president has asked the group to play at the White House for a state dinner. And I was like super excited. I said, wow, I'm going to play at the White House, for the president. And the very next thought after that was, how do I get my drugs and alcohol into the White House? And the thing that was crazy was that the administration at that time, their motto was just say no. That wasn't going to stop me. And I didn't think for a second that was a skewed thought or a skewed idea, or why am I thinking like this? It was more, I'm going to tell my grandchildren about this. And I did get my whatever right into the White House. And as I'm sitting in the White House the night right before the show was we're getting ready to go on, I'm in this room and I'm putting this powder greater than myself into my body. And the thought is, I have arrived. And it's so strange because what I had arrived at was selfishness, self-seeking, self-delusion, self-pity, because I'm thinking something like it could be more grand. There's something there that's going on that I'd arrived at this place that they said was the root of my troubles. I had no idea that I was this liability to my bandmates and creating this thing because it was all about me. And that's an understanding that I didn't have about this disease that they say that's the root of my problem is this self-delusion, this self-seeking, self, self, self. So I dodged a bullet. I didn't, nothing happened. We played the show and I went on and I'm touring and I'm doing these things. And at one point, I'm getting off a plane and I go through this customs and the man tells me to come over to the side and he goes through my bag and he finds something in my suitcase. And at that moment, what did I think? If I would have just put it in my boot, everything would be okay. And the disease, again, is hustling me, is making me think that it's something out there. And the band's walking by me and they're looking at me like, what the heck? And, I dealt with that issue. And the musical director came into my room later that night and said, we're going to have to let you go because you're a liability. But this is a wake-up call for you. This is a wake-up call from God. And for the first time, I had a little bit of clarity there. And I said, this is a wake-up call from God. She says, you need to get your shit together. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I know what I have to do. I'm going to go home and I'm going to throw out all of the things that, all my paraphernalia, and I'm going to start eating health food and I'm going to start getting my life together, start working out and eat health food. So when I get home, of course, I'm distraught. I've lost this gig. It's everything I've ever wanted in my life, blah, 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 blah. And I'm ready to go to the store to get health food. And I drive and the store's to the right, but I turn to the left. Now I'm devastated. I've lost everything that means anything to me in my mind. And the store's to the right, but I make another left and I end up parked in front of the man's house. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And at that point, I had this moment of clarity and I just break into tears and I just start crying because I knew at that moment, this moment of clarity that I had was that I had lost the power of choice. I had no say in the matter. And at that moment, with this moment of clarity, understanding that I needed to, really change my life and get to AA and all this stuff, I went in the man's house. And it took me some time after that to go through other situations where I finally crawled back into this room, the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found a sponsor. And that's that guy that I told you about that said if I have a problem with knowing if I'm an alcoholic or not, then just to go down and have a drink and see how that went. And what happened with this realization of understanding at that point was that I had to take a step, but it wasn't step one. It wasn't, because what I really needed to do was take step 0, which was concede to my most inner self that I was an alcoholic. That's what they say is the first step in recovery, is that I must concede to my most inner self, that I'm different, that I'm not like a normal person drinking. That's the thing that Dr. Silkworth was trying to tell me in the doctor's opinion, was that I'm different than the average drinker. And based on my experiences and those things, that will show me my unmanageability. But my experience spiritually is really what showed me that I am an alcoholic, that I have lost this power of choice. And so that was the first thing that I was able to do. Then I could take the first step and say that I'm mild and I'm an alcoholic and my life is unmanageable. And that has probably been the biggest gift in my life, I can say today, the most powerful gift in my life is that the knowing in myself, in my most inner self, that I'm an alcoholic, because that truly has set me free. I know what I have to do now. I have to focus on the solution. And so what is the solution? The solution is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The solution is coming in and understanding that I'm an alcoholic, and then taking that first step and saying that I'm powerless, and seeing the unmanageability in my life. And then in step two, saying, you know, I need to be returned to sanity. I need to find a power greater than myself that can restore me to sanity, because I can see that I am not of sound mind with all of the things that I've done, and oh, I mean, just I could go on and on and on. But as I come into these rooms, I see people. I see people in the same meeting, 2 or 3 people in the same meeting, that have taken a human life because they were drunk, because they were under the influence of alcohol, and they killed someone. And then another woman in that same meeting is crying because she's driving around in a blackout with her newborn baby, and she's afraid that she's gonna kill both of them. And the common denominator there is that didn't stop any of those folks from drinking. I mean, I've heard a man share in a meeting that he wanted to kill himself so bad, he wanted to commit suicide. He was so miserable, and so much, stuff was going on in his life. But he didn't kill himself because he thought, oh, if I kill myself, I won't be able to have another drink. So that stopped him from killing himself. I was at a meeting with Carol, and there was this woman who was blind, and she used to walk miles to the liquor store with her kid, blind, so she could get a drink. I mean, these experiences, these stories show me that this is some powerful, powerful stuff that I cannot win against alcohol. But the knowledge of that isn't going to keep me sober. Not understanding that, I put my hand on the hot flame, I burn it. It's been a long time since I've just put my hand on the flame. I just don't do it. But that drink I'll go back to, because of that obsession of the mind that I can't remember. So I need to find a power greater than myself that can do what I can't do. And so basically, when I say the solution is in the 12 steps, now I start understanding that as I get into this third step, turning my life and my will over to the care of this power is the solution. Because now me driving myself is like, me with my foot all the way down on the pedal with no steering wheel, just what is that? So now I have to turn that and give this higher power the will. I call my higher power God. We can call it whatever we want. My first sponsor said, you needed to come up with your own conception of a power greater than yourself. And so I did, this loving kind of fatherly figure that had a sense of humor, that didn't, wasn't going to, burn me in hell for eternity if I said, the F word. I came up with my own, has a sense of humor, that loving entity that was omnipotent, that was this. And so I came up with my own conception of what my higher power was. And I call it God because they called it God. And we all know what we're talking about when I say God, just like if I'm wearing this shirt and you say shirt, I know we're talking about a shirt, different color, long sleeve, short sleeve, I know. So I just come up with my own conception, and that worked for me when I came in here, because I didn't have a loving God. I had a punishing God when I came in here. So now I've come up with this conception of turning my higher power, turning my will over to my higher power. And then my sponsor says, I want you to get into this 4th step work. And, I don't really know that much about it, but everything, 4 step, the vibe was daunting that, people going through that. And so, but I do it, another word that I was looking for was perseverance. Let's see, did I find that? No, I didn't. But I found discipline. Found discipline in here. Discipline, control gained by enforcing obedience or order. Oh, training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. That's discipline. I needed some discipline, when I came into here and I started working these steps and started being able to just move forward through the fear that I'd have of what I was going to find. And as I get through this stuff, it starts actually turning into something that is I'm so involved with. And I get actually to my fifth step where my sponsor says, okay, I want you to read me all this stuff. And I was nervous about that. But as I went through these things and I told him these things that I would never tell anybody else, I never thought that I would tell anyone else. All he did was sit there and, yeah, I did that too, where he pointed out four things: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Those were the core character defects that he saw through all the work that I did in my fourth step. And I started understanding that those were the things that were actually going to block me from this sunlight of the spirit, block me from a power that was going to give me a defense against the first drink. So now the solution becomes more clear that I need to stay aligned with this power that's going to give me a defense against the first drink. And the 12 steps will do that. As I make this a way of life, there's going to be this kind of GPS that's now incorporated in my life to keep me aligned with this power. Whenever I'm selfish, dishonest, or resentful or fearful, that I need to come to this power and ask this power to remove those things. And then I speak with someone about it because I'm only sick of my secrets. And then I turn my thoughts to how I can be of service to another. Turn my thoughts to how I can be of service to another. I'm trying to figure out how is that really a solution for me stopping my drinking. Well, Sandy Beach says that my default setting is irritable, restless, and discontented. That's my default setting, whether I lose a loved one or I just win the lottery. I won the lottery. And 2 days later, I'm going, God, I got to pay taxes on that. And so my mind is, this alcoholic mind is going to keep me in that state of irritable, restless, and discontented. Now, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous will take me out of that state, and they will put me into a state of love. The reduction sauce for AA is love. I don't know if there's any chefs in here, but you know what I'm talking about. This is something that is what I found. So now if I'm in a state of love, I'm going to be a better service to my fellows. And if I'm a better service to my fellows, that's where I find true peace. So what's happening here? This thing of service, this way of being of service is where I'm finding true peace. I told you earlier, that Dr. Silkworth said that we like the effects produced by alcohol. I can tell you 30 years later, I love the effects produced by God. I love the effects produced by this experience of being aligned with this power and allowing me to be of service to others. How did that happen from this selfish, self-seeking, self-centered alcoholic, And so my sponsor points out those things and he tells me to go home and do my 6th and 7th step. And at that time, I think about the work that I've done in AA. I think about this whole process. And it also comes to me, it's like, wow, I haven't had a obsession to drink. I haven't been thinking about the drink. I've been into this work and I've sat there and I do this meditation for no less than 1 hour. And at that point, I think about all these character defects and I think about my fears and those things. And I'm able to understand how this process has been working in my life. And as I do my 7th step and I say that 7th step prayer, I have a nearness to my creator. I feel this connection that I've never felt before. And I'm elevated and this thing is lifted and I'm experiencing something that I don't understand and I'm moving forward. And as I come out of that experience, my sponsor the very next day says, okay, we're going to get you into your 10th step work. Because I'm hypersensitive now of those things that are going to block me from my higher power: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So now I'm into this process where I'm doing 10th step work and I'm whenever those things crop up, I share that 3-step process. I ask God to remove, I talk to someone else about it, and then I turn my thoughts to how I could be of service to another. And after I go through that process, he throws me into this 8th and 9th work, which I've already done my 8th step. In my 4th step work, I've already done the 8th. I created a wrongs list. And so now I'm able to put a list together to go out to and make these amends. and to make these restitutions. And at that point, this black and white existence starts turning into vivid color. And I start looking at the sky, and I'm seeing this kind of purple hue, and I'm going, what is happening? What is going on right now? And what I'm having is this spiritual awakening, this spiritual experience that they're talking about. And I start feeling that, and I start getting really pumped up about this thing. And I'm like, hyper sensitive on how can I do this more? How can I be there more? How can I help others? And this is a transformation that happens for me, even though I've got grave mental disorders. If I have the capacity to be honest, I start experiencing this stuff. And that's, what's happened through this process of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I told you that this reduction sauce, this love thing, is something that also needs to shift. And I need to start from just trying to love all of you, start loving myself. And we were reading about it when Carol read about, just this love for ourselves, being able to not beat myself up, to be able to, even the parts of myself that I didn't like or don't like, start loving those parts, because I can be, this mental thing. Now that I'm having this experience where the drink is not happening anymore, the think is happening, and I'm having, an understanding that this disease now is centering in my mind, so the disease centers in my mind, but the solution continues to center in my heart. The solution of love, the solution of being able to be here and to show up, no matter what's going on in my life. Got some financial stuff happening. My relationship right now is a little, rocky. I have uncertainty in those things, but there's no thought that I'm not going to come here and I'm not going to share my experience, strength, and hope, so that I might be able to help somebody. I know that as I continue this step work, the 10th step, 11, and 12 is where I live. And in my 11th step, I continue to have this conscious contact with my higher power. I do those things in the morning, throughout my day when I'm, disturbed. I pause, I do a thing in the morning to ask God to show me what I should do today. And then at night, I do that work again. It's 11 step work. I ask God those 10 questions, where was I resentful? Where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest? Where was I afraid? Do I owe an apology? Is there something I should have shared with another that I didn't? Was I kind and loving to all today? What did I do, that I could do better? What did I do to help someone? What did I pack into the stream of life? And at the end of all of that, and I answer those questions, I thank this higher power for keeping me sober today. Because 30 years later, I can tell you that I do not have the power to keep myself sober. I know that I'm in a state of grace. I am in a state of grace because I stay aligned with this power that I've found in these rooms, not that punishing God, but this loving God. And so that I am driven to do, because I know that if I don't do that, I'll die. And I will create havoc around anybody that I'm in their sphere. And so I continued to do this work, this 11-step work. And having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I'm able to carry the message, hopefully, and practice these principles in all my affairs. And they say these are maintenance steps, these 10, 11, and 12. This is nothing about maintaining anything. This is about where I expand and grow spiritually and have this experience that I could never imagine. Alcoholics Anonymous, has allowed me to just give up one thing and get everything. And it's something that I have to do. I can't unknow what I know now. And that's that little GPS, that little alarm that goes off when I'm going off the path. If I stay and make this a way of life, I will have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And one of the things that happened to me, and I don't know how much time I have left, but, in my sobriety, I had a son that his mom died when he was 4 years old. And he was, I think I was 16 or 17 years old when he was born. And he was adopted. And I always wanted to find him. And for some reason, I didn't find him until I got sober. But I found him and we've had this amazing life together the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years. And he has a son now. He's my grandson. And his name is Enzo. And I love this little guy. And I know when I see him, this is the blessing of this program. And they gave me a 30-year cake the other day. And I think about this guy and I say, Enzo, I love you bigger than the universe. And he looks back at me, and this kid's 8 years old, and he says, Grandpa, I love you bigger than the universe and infinite times more. Who says that? That's the way I think of my higher power, that he loves me bigger than the universe and infinite times more. And I love you guys bigger than the universe, and thanks for letting me share.